Introduction. Di Tolang Koya Isis, my precious friends. My name is Sara Florence Davidson. My father is Robert Davidson. He is of Haida and Tlingit ancestry. His name is Otsandlance, which means eagle on whom it is dawning. My mother is Susan Davidson. She is Wasinjanas, and she was given the name Nunstlai Tuakwiwas, which means precious greasy hands, by my great-grandmother Florence Davidson. My surname, Davidson, comes to me indirectly through the missionaries. They assigned my great-great-grandfather the name David and used his Haida name Natlan as his surname. My great-grandfather was the son of David Natlan and was thus given the last name Davidson, which was passed on to my grandfather, my father, and then on to me. The missionaries did not observe or respect that we are matrilineal and our names are intended to be passed on to us through our mothers. According to Bob Joseph, traditional names went against the government's objectives. The government feared that leaving Indigenous people with their traditional names would take away their motivation to assimilate. The Haida have two moieties, or social groups, Raven and Eagle. Each moiety is made up of different clans. Traditionally, we only married members of the opposite moiety, often the clan of our father. Because we are matrilineal, our clan comes from our mother when we are born. My father is an eagle who belongs to the Ch'oth clan. My great-grandmother adopted my mother into the Yakut-Janas Raven clan, which gave my brother and me a place in Haida society. Image. Davidson family tree, partial, footnote 3. A more detailed family tree can be found in Blackman, 1982. A graphic depicting a family tree representing 33 individuals indicating gender with a circle or triangles under a name. Names appear on 6 lines showing unions and children. The family tree will be described from the top down. David and Eliza united and had Robert Sr. Charles and Isabella united and had Florence. Robert Sr. and Florence united and had Alfred, Virginia, Reginald, Claude, Primrose, Emily, Myrtle, Agnes, Merle, and Clara. Claude and Vivian united and had Arlene, Robert, Arnold, and Reg. Claude also united with Sara. Arlene united with Herb and had Herbie. Robert united with Susan and had Sara and Ben. Robert also united with Dorothy. Robert also united with Terry Lynn. Reg united with Cindy and had Leslie. Reg also united with Janice and had Cecil. One of the names that my great-grandmother gave me is Anjak Gusandlance, which means killer whale woman on whom it is dawning. I use this name in my work because it acknowledges my connection to my father, just as my clan connects me to my mother. In this way, my work draws on the strength of the Wasinjanas that come to me through my mother and the strengths of the Haida that come to me through my father. Though my father was born in Heidelberg, Alaska, he was raised in the community of Old Masset, which is on the northern coast of Haida Gwaii, a remote archipelago located off the northwestern coast of British Columbia. According to European history, Haida Gwaii and the Haida were discovered by explorers seeking trade opportunities in the late 18th century. In 1852, the Hudson's Bay Company arrived seeking gold, and in 1876, Archdeacon Collison, the first missionary to work on Haida Gwaii, established himself in Masset. However, according to our own history, the Haida were discovered by Raven or Nungkilslas while he was traveling all over the earth. During his travels, he found a cockle shell that was being tossed about in the waves. When he approached the shell to see what it was, he discovered that inside the cockle shell there were many children. Image. Raven and the First Men by Ben Davidson. A circle-shaped West Coast-style cedar wood carving which illustrates the story in 2 dimensions. A giant raven stands over 3 men emerging from a seashell with arc-shaped ridges. The raven's head is oversized compared to its body. The man on the left smiles nose to beak with Raven. Raven has its beak around the head of the middle man, who sticks his tongue out and clutches the edge of the shell. The man on the right sits in the shell and witnesses. It is difficult to know the exact population of the Haida before European contact, and specifically before 1835 when the Hudson's Bay Company was directed to take censuses of the nations with whom they were in contact. We do know that the population was significantly greater than what was recorded in 1835, because by that time, Indigenous peoples in British Columbia had been in contact with Europeans who introduced foreign diseases for several decades. Smallpox was one such disease that came close to eradicating the Haida population, particularly during the outbreak of 1862, which began in Victoria and was predominantly carried back to the nations along the coast and spread throughout those regions. According to my great-grandmother, her mother, Isabella Edenshaw, narrowly escaped that epidemic when it reached Haida Gwaii. However, many were not so fortunate. When I asked my father about the impact of smallpox on the Haida, he described a potlatch hosted by the late Kwakwaka'wakw artist and chief, Bo Dick, that took place in 2008. The potlatch was to honor the 300 Haida people who died of smallpox in the Kwakwaka'wakw territory as they tried to make their way home from Victoria. One Haida population estimate indicates that in 1835 there were 6,000 Haidas, which dropped to 800 in 1885, with a population low of 588 in 1915. Other Haida population estimates were 9,490 before 1836, 8,428 in the 1830s, 1,598 from 1880 to 1883, and 1,049 from 1915 to 1920. The impact of this rapid population decline resulted in Haida people relocating from their original village sites to larger combined villages. This amalgamation of villages containing so many different clans presented new challenges for the Haida social structure. As Marianne Bolsher describes it, the village of Masset is atypical of Aboriginal Haida villages, as members of more than a dozen lineages lived here, who in pre-contact times would not have shared a village, and would rarely have engaged in daily interaction or ceremonial obligation. Image. Haida Gwaii, a line-drawn map of Haida Gwaii. Off the western coast of British Columbia sits a narrow triangular archipelago, with its tip pointing south. The shape gently curves back toward the mainland. This group of islands or archipelago is bordered by the Pacific Ocean to the west, Dixon Entrance to the north, and Hecate Strait to the east. The map has an inset which indicates latitude and longitude, 132 degrees west and 53 degrees north. The archipelago is located between Alaska and Vancouver Island. The closest mainland cities are Prince Rupert in British Columbia, and to the north is Heidelberg, Alaska. The map indicates Vancouver, Victoria, and Kwakwaka'wakw. The map shows the following 10 points. Along the north shore of the archipelago is Old Masset, Kayung, Masset, Yon, and Naden Harbor. The interior of the northern part of the archipelago is Port Clements and Yacon River. Along the eastern coast, Talal. At the archipelago's center is Queen Charlotte, Skidegate, and Sandspit. In 1882, the Joint Reserve Commission allocated only abandoned and present village sites as reserve land, and by the 1900s, settlements only existed in Skidegate and Old Masset, or At Awas. In 1884, the potlatch ban was enacted, which made it illegal for the Haida and other First Nations to host potlatches in the region that is currently known as Canada. Traditionally, the potlatch was the legal foundation for our social structure and ensured the transmission of our cultural knowledge as, among the Haida, all claims to social position must be witnessed and sanctioned by the public. These cultural aspects of the potlatch were grossly misunderstood by the missionaries. For example, as Charles Harrison described, the potlatch was another custom of the old Haidas. The potlatch was the impoverishing native custom of giving away property and has now been discontinued. In fact, the potlatch raised the social standing of the host and his family and increased their wealth.